On Christmas Eve, I found a note my wife and her child had left behind. We're going to Florida. Move out before we get back. That was it. No explanation, no conversation, no signature like it didn't matter who found it as long as the message landed. I didn't shout. I didn't call them. I sat at the kitchen table with the house still warm from the heater and the coffee maker ticking like a clock with opinions. I picked up my phone and made one call. When they returned, they went pale. Not because I threatened them, because I stopped holding everything together. I woke before the alarm the way you do when something is wrong, but your body hasn't figured out what yet. The house was quiet in that particular Christmas Eve way. No traffic, no neighbors slamming doors, no distant sirens. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the soft, almost embarrassed click of the thermostat turning itself off. I lay there for a minute staring at the ceiling, counting the cracks I'd promised myself I'd fix years ago. Then I swung my legs out of bed and padded down the hall. The kitchen light revealed the note immediately. White paper against the dark wood table. Centered, intentional. I knew before I read it that it wasn't good. There's a posture to bad news. It doesn't hide. It waits. We're going to Florida. Move out before we get back. I read it twice then, a third time slower, like maybe the words would soften if I gave them patience. They didn't. I sat down. The chair creaked, one of many things in that house I'd fixed halfway and lived with fully. I noticed the coffee grounds still in the filter from the night before the sink wiped, but not dried the counter bare except for the note. No stockings out, no tree lights on, no sign of packing because they'd already gone. My wife Karen and her son Evan. 19 years old, college freshman, home for break, loud laugh, big opinions, a habit of leaving lights on and doors unlocked because someone else always caught it. Me usually. He called me Michael. Never Dad, never Mike. Just Michael, like I was a neighbor he tolerated. I didn't feel angry. That surprised me. I felt measured, as if something I'd suspected for a long time had finally said its name out loud. I checked my phone. No missed calls, no texts, not even a "we'll talk later." The driveway outside the window was empty. Their car, my car, technically was gone. I stood and looked out anyway, like it might reverse back in if I kept my eyes on it. It didn't. I thought about calling Karen. The reflex was there, automatic as breathing. Then I noticed my hand hadn't moved. It stayed flat on the table, palm down, like it was holding the moment still. I made coffee. Black. Too strong. I drank it standing up. I read the note again. I folded it once, then again, and slid it into my pocket. Not because I needed proof, because I wanted to remember how it felt to find it. Karen and I met 8 years ago at a work fundraiser. She laughed at a joke I didn't think was funny and told me I had a steady presence. People say things like that when they want reliability without asking for intimacy. I mistook it for compatibility. Evan was 11 then, thin and sharp-eyed, already learning how to measure adults. His father Tom had left early enough to be mythologized. Every absence became a virtue. Every failure a mystery. I moved into the house 2 years later. It was already Karen's. I didn't mind. I like projects, like being useful. I paid the mortgage because it made sense. I upgraded the electrical because it needed it. I added my name to the insurance, the utilities, the car. I told myself this was what building a life looked like. Evan grew. He learned which buttons worked. He learned that Karen heard him differently than she heard me. When he was 16, he started saying things like, "It's not your house," when I asked him to clean up after himself. Karen would smooth it over. "He's just a kid," she'd say, even as he got taller than both of us. I let it go. I let a lot go. People like me are good at that. I took my phone from the counter and scrolled to a number I hadn't used in a while. Daniel, an old friend from before marriage, before compromises disguised as peace. He answered on the second ring. "You awake?" he asked. "I am now," I said. My voice sounded normal. That felt important. "What's up?" "I need to check something," I said, quietly. He paused just enough. "Okay." That was the call. No details, no drama, just a door opening. I spent the next hour doing inventory, not of feelings, but of facts. The mortgage was in my name. The insurance, too. Evan's tuition portal used my card. The car was registered jointly, but the payments came from my account. The utilities, the streaming services, the phone plan mine. Not because I wanted control, because it had been easier. Because every time I asked to split something, Karen said, we'll figure it out later. Later had arrived. I didn't cancel anything yet. I didn't change passwords or lock doors. I packed a bag, not in a rush. Jeans, sweaters, the watch, my father gave me my passport. I left the bed made. I wiped the counter. I set the thermostat lower. Old habits die politely. As I zipped the bag, I noticed something small and sharp relief. Not happiness, not triumph, just the absence of weight I hadn't realized I was carrying. I left the house before noon. I didn't leave a note. I didn't need to. The one on the table had said enough. They would come back sunburned and annoyed. They would expect noise, explanations, negotiations. Instead, they would find a quiet house that ran differently, and for the first time, they would have to ask why. I didn't take anything that wasn't mine. I just stopped being the thing they leaned on without looking. I checked into a small extended stay hotel near the highway, neutral colors, thin carpet, the kind of place designed to forget you as soon as you leave. The room smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and something older underneath it, like patience. I set my bag down, sat on the edge of the bed, and listened to the silence. Not the charged silence of a fight waiting to happen. The clean kind. The kind that doesn't ask you to perform. That night, sleep came in pieces. I kept waking up to the same thought sliding back into consciousness like a receipt you can't throw away. How did this happen without me noticing? The answer, when it finally surfaced, wasn't dramatic. It was ordinary. It always is. Karen liked to say our house ran smoothly. She said it with pride, like she'd assembled something delicate. What she meant was that problems disappeared before she had to look at them. I made that possible. I paid attention. I noticed when the water pressure dipped, when the credit card bill crept up, when Evan's school emails got longer and more urgent. I handled the background so the foreground could stay pleasant. When Evan was 15, he broke the side mirror on the car. He shrugged when I asked about it. It was already loose, he said. Karen waved me off. He's stressed, she told me. I ordered the part and fixed it myself. That night, Evan asked if I could spot him gas money. I did. He didn't say thanks. Karen kissed my cheek and said, "You're so steady." Steady became my name in that house. I wasn't always invisible. At the beginning, I tried. I asked Evan about his classes, his friends, the music he played too loud through the walls. He answered with one-word replies and eyes already gone. When he did talk, it was about his father, Tom, who had taught him to throw a curveball once and then vanished like a magic trick. Absence does that. It grows. Karen would listen, nodding eyes shiny with empathy. He misses him, she'd say, as if that explained everything. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it becomes an excuse that never expires. I suggested family dinners. Karen agreed once, then canceled twice. Evan ate in his room. When I asked if we could try again, Karen said, "Let's not force things." Force in that house meant asking for anything that didn't come pre-approved. By the time Evan started college applications, my role had solidified. I proofread essays, I paid fees. I drove him to campus tours and waited in the car while Karen and Evan talked with advisors. When I asked why I couldn't come in, Karen smiled thinly. "It's easier if it's just us," she said. "Us did a lot of work." The night the acceptance email came, Evan whooped and slapped the wall like it was a touchdown. Karen cried. I opened a bottle of something I'd been saving and poured 3 glasses. Evan took his, drank it in one go and said, "So how are we paying for this?" He looked at Karen. Not me. She looked at me anyway. "We'll figure it out," I said. It was my line by then. We figured it out with my card on the portal and my name on the receipts. Tuition, housing, a meal plan that cost more than my groceries for a month. Karen said she'd pay me back when things settled. Things never settled. They rearranged. When Evan moved into the dorms, he called the house less. When he did, it was to ask for money or to complain about roommates. Karen took those calls in the living room, voice low and soothing. If I walked in, she'd lower it further, like I'd interrupted something private, which I had. Their bond had its own temperature. I didn't fit inside it. Holidays were worse. Evan came home with opinions sharpened by distance. He criticized the house, the food, the way I parked. "Why do you do it like that?" he asked once, pointing at the recycling. I told him it was the city system. He laughed. "That's dumb." Karen laughed too, a quick echo. I smiled because smiling is cheaper than arguing. The night before he left for winter break, Evan asked if I could lend him my car. The nicer one, he said. I told him it needed an oil change. He rolled his eyes. You always say that. Karen sighed. Michael, please. I handed him the keys. Later, I found a parking ticket in the glove compartment. Evan hadn't mentioned it. I paid it. That's how invisibility works. You clean up messes quietly until the quiet becomes expected. I thought about my father sometimes. He was a machinist, hands always smelling faintly of metal and soap. He used to say, don't confuse usefulness with belonging. I didn't listen. I was busy being useful. The Florida trip had been mentioned in passing weeks earlier. Karen said it would be good for Evan. I asked if I should take time off work. She hesitated. We thought it might just be us, she said. Bonding. I nodded. Of course, bonding is important. I asked when they were leaving. We'll tell you, she said. They didn't. At the hotel, I ordered takeout and ate on the bed, watching a muted rerun of something forgettable. I felt foolish for not being surprised. This wasn't a betrayal that came out of nowhere. It was a conclusion. My phone buzzed once. A notification from the bank. Nothing urgent, just the daily summary. I didn't open it. I wasn't ready yet. I lay back and stared at the ceiling, the faint water stain shaped like a country I'd never visit. I thought about Evan's laugh, Karen's practiced calm, the way my name had been used like a tool. I thought about the note on the table, about how it didn't bother to say please. I slept better after that. The kind of sleep you get when your mind stops negotiating with itself. In the morning, I made a list, not of grievances, of steps. I wasn't angry enough to be reckless. I was clear enough to be precise. By the time Karen and Evan returned, they would want a conversation. They would want reasons. They would want me to explain myself in a way that made them comfortable. I understood then that comfort had always been the currency, and I had been paying with myself. I folded the list and put it in my pocket. I didn't need to memorize it. I'd been preparing for this longer than I knew. There's a moment when you stop reacting and start counting that everything changes. Not the dramatic kind of counting, no tally of insults or slights, but the practical kind. The kind that asks what actually runs this place and waits patiently for an honest answer. I sat at the small desk in the hotel room with my laptop open and the curtains half drawn. Outside, the highway murmured steady and indifferent. I logged into accounts I'd opened years ago and rarely questioned. Mortgage, utilities, insurance, tuition portal. Each login felt less like trespassing and more like checking the pulse of something that had been relying on me without acknowledging it. The house's mortgage was in my name. That had happened early back when Karen said refinancing would simplify things. The interest rate dropped. My signature went on the line. Her name didn't. I remembered the kitchen that night, takeout containers, Evan complaining about math homework, Karen thanking me for handling it. Handling became another word for carrying. Utilities followed the same logic. I'd moved my accounts over when we merged households because it was easier to have one point of contact. Electric, gas, water, internet. Automatic payments humming along each month like a promise I didn't remember making, but kept anyway. Insurance too, home auto umbrella policy. I was the umbrella apparently. I opened the tuition portal last. Evan's school had a clean interface, lots of blue and reassuring fonts. It showed balances and deadlines and the quiet confidence of systems that assume someone responsible is paying attention. My card was listed as the primary payment method. The upcoming charge sat there unbothered by my absence. I imagined Evan on the beach phone, face down, not thinking about any of this. Why would he? It had always worked. I closed the laptop and leaned back, chair squeaking. I didn't feel vindictive. I felt precise, like a mechanic who finally understands the noise an engine has been making for years. The memories came in small, sharp flashes. Karen asking me to spot a payment because her paycheck was late. Evan forgetting deadlines and calling me from campus with a panic he assumed I'd absorb. Can you just take care of it? He'd say like it was a reflex. I always had. I thought that's what commitment looked like. I called Daniel again later that afternoon. He picked up with a hum mid-coffee. You find what you were looking for, he asked. I did, I said, more than I expected. He didn't press. He never did. What's the plan? I looked at the list in my pocket and unfolded it. Steps, not speeches. I'm going to change as little as possible, I said, and stop what I don't own. Daniel exhaled. That's usually the hardest way. It's the cleanest, I said. We talk logistics, not emotions. He reminded me to document everything to avoid confrontation until I was finished. People get loud when the scaffolding comes down, he said. You don't want to be under it. That night, I walked to a diner nearby and ate alone. The waitress called me Han and refilled my coffee without asking. I tipped too much. I watched families come and go, the easy chaos of people who assume they belong together. I didn't envy them. I felt outside but not excluded. There's a difference. Back in the room, I drafted emails I didn't send. Notes to myself about timelines and grace periods. I wasn't trying to hurt anyone. I was trying to stop lying to myself. That required restraint. I thought about Karen's voice when she said we're going to Florida. Not I'm going. We're, a collective that didn't include me. The note wasn't cruel because of what it said. It was cruel because of how obvious it was to them that I didn't need to be consulted. By morning, I decided what would change and what wouldn't. I wouldn't cancel the mortgage. I wouldn't shut off utilities. I wasn't interested in chaos. I would remove my card from the tuition portal. I would separate the auto insurance. I would transfer the car payment to Karen's account. There was a joint option she'd ignored because it required effort. I would notify the bank of my change of address. Quiet things. Administrative things. The kind that don't announce themselves. I started with the tuition portal. 2 clicks and a confirmation screen. Payment method removed. No warning email sent to Evan. No drama. Just a system adjusting to reality. Next, the insurance. A calm representative with a practiced voice walked me through options. You'll need to designate separate policies, she said. I did. My name slid off theirs like a label peeling cleanly from glass. The car payment took longer. Karen had never bothered to set up her own access. I transferred the responsibility and sent a neutral notification. Effective immediately, payments will be required from the primary account holder. No commentary, facts only. Each step felt less like an action and more like an undoing. I wasn't dismantling their lives. I was returning them to themselves. I paused before the last item on my list, the streaming services. It would have been petty to cancel them, I knew, and yet the thought lingered. I smiled at myself and closed the tab. Some things weren't worth the symbolism. By noon it was done. I packed my laptop away and sat on the bed, hands resting on my knees. My phone buzzed, an automated email from the university acknowledging the update. I silenced it. I wondered when they'd notice. Not because I was eager, but because I was curious. Systems have a way of revealing truths without raising their voices. I took a walk and let the cold air wake me up. The day felt ordinary. That too surprised me. I'd expected some internal fireworks. Instead, there was space, room to think without anticipating someone else's needs. When I returned to the hotel, I found a voicemail from Karen. 1 missed call, no message. I didn't listen to it. I wasn't finished yet. I sat down and wrote one more note, not to them, but to myself. You don't have to explain what you didn't decide. I folded it and tucked it into my wallet. The quiet accounting was over. The numbers had told their story. All that remained was time, and time has a way of delivering receipts. The call came while I was standing in line at the hotel's front desk, waiting for a receipt I didn't actually need. Karen's name lit up my phone, bright and insistent, like it had every right to interrupt me. I watched it ring out, not to punish her, not to make a point. I just wasn't ready to talk yet. There's a difference between silence and avoidance, and I needed the first, not the second. I stepped outside instead. The parking lot was half full, the air sharp with winter. I leaned against my car and let the cold anchor me. When the phone rang again, it was Evan this time. I let that one go too. I wasn't angry, I was deliberate. If I answered now, I'd be negotiating from habit, not intention. I made the call I'd been saving for last. The attorney's office was efficient, which I appreciated. No dramatic intake questions, no raised eyebrows, just dates, names, documents. We'll file the notice, she said, voice steady, like we were talking about a fence repair. You'll want to change beneficiaries as well. Already did, I said. Good, she replied. Most people forget that part. I hung up and sat in the car for a minute, hands on the wheel, not driving anywhere. The radio clicked on by accident, holiday music, cheerful and insistent. I turned it off. The quiet felt earned. Back in the room, I finally listened to Karen's voicemail. Her voice was tight-pitched, just above calm. Michael, call me. Something's wrong with Evan's school account, and the car payment didn't go through. Did you change something? The pause before change was telling. Not did you do this, but did you change something? As if the world had shifted its settings without permission. I didn't call back, not yet. Evan texted next. My tuition portal says payment failed. What did you do? No greeting, no question mark at the end. I set the phone down face up and watched the screen go dark. I ordered a sandwich from the lobby cafe and ate slowly, tasting each bite. This wasn't cruelty, it was timing. I needed them to see the shape of the problem before I explained its cause. By evening, the calls stacked up. Karen again, Evan again. A number I didn't recognize, probably Tom, finally reanimated by inconvenience. I ignored them all. I wasn't hiding, I was finishing. I opened my laptop one last time to confirm everything had processed. Green check marks, confirmation numbers, the small, satisfying finality of systems doing what they're told. I emailed copies to myself and closed the lid. At 8:12 p.m., I answered Karen's call. Michael, she said, exhaling my name like a complaint. What's going on? I'm at a hotel, I said. I won't be home tonight. That's not what I meant, she snapped, then softened. Evan can't register for next term. The car payment bounced, the insurance. I separated accounts, I said. I kept my voice level. Everything that's in my name now applies to me. There was a beat, then you can't just do that. I said. I did. You're overreacting, she said quickly. This was supposed to be a conversation. A note isn't a conversation, I replied. She inhaled sharply. We were going to talk when we got back. You asked me to move out before you did, I said. I took that seriously. Evan's voice cut in loud and brittle. So you're screwing me over now? I closed my eyes. I'm not screwing you over. I'm stepping back. You always said you'd help, he said. You said you had my back. I said I'd help, I replied. I didn't say I'd carry everything forever. Karen jumped back in. Michael, this is ridiculous. Evan needs this sorted. Just put the card back on. We'll figure it out later. I felt something settle then. Not anger, resolution. No, I said. Silence. Then Evan laughed, short and disbelieving. You can't just stop. I said again. I'm not punishing anyone. I'm not taking anything that isn't mine. I'm just not paying for things I'm not part of. Karen's voice turned careful. You're upset. Let's talk when you're calmer. I am calm, I said. That's why I'm saying no. Tom's voice appeared tinny through the speaker. Mike, buddy, let's be reasonable. I smiled without humor. It's Michael, I said, and reasonable as adults paying for their own responsibilities. This affects Evan's future, Tom protested. So does learning how money works, I replied. Karen tried again, softer. We're family. I waited a moment. Families don't leave notes telling someone to disappear, I said. They don't assume access without asking. Evan swore under his breath. Karen said my name like a warning. I didn't flinch. I'll be by tomorrow to get the rest of my things, I said. Please don't be there. You're really doing this, Karen said. Yes, I said, I am. I ended the call before it could turn into bargaining. My hands shook, not from fear, but from the release of something held too long. I lay on the bed and stared at the ceiling, the hum of the heater filling the room. My phone buzzed once more, then went quiet. For the first time in years, no one needed me to fix anything. Outside cars passed headlights slicing the dark. Somewhere my house waited, adjusting to a new equation. Somewhere else, Karen and Evan faced a world that no longer bent automatically around them. I didn't feel victorious, I felt accurate. They came back 3 days later. I know this because Karen texted me a single sentence at 6:42 a.m. We're home. No greeting, no question, just a statement like a flag planted in contested ground. I didn't reply. I was already awake, sitting at the small table in the hotel room with a cup of coffee gone cold, watching the sky shift from dark gray to something less certain. I'd slept fine. Not deeply, but honestly. The kind of sleep you get when your mind isn't bracing for impact. By mid-morning, the call started again. Karen first, then Evan, then Tom, then Karen again, closer together now, the way people knock when they believe persistence equals authority. I let the phone ring. I wasn't avoiding them. I was letting the moment finish arriving. At noon, I drove back to the house. I parked down the street out of habit and walked the rest of the way. The front door looked the same. Blue paint slightly chipped near the handle. The wreath Karen insisted on every December still hung crooked, one pine cone missing. I took a breath before unlocking it, the familiar resistance in the lock easing under my key. Inside the house felt wrong, not empty, exposed. Furniture was still there, but the rooms lacked something essential, like a stage after the lights have been pulled. The thermostat was low, the air sharp. Someone had turned everything up while I was gone, expecting comfort to respond on demand. It hadn't. I moved methodically, closet first. My jackets were gone, folded neatly on the bed, like they'd been curated rather than removed. Karen's handwriting lay on top of them, a note this time addressed to me. "We need to talk. Please don't do this." I didn't pick it up. I packed. The door slammed behind me halfway through the second box. Michael. Karen stood in the hallway, suitcase still by the door. Tan faded to irritation. Evan hovered behind her, arms crossed, phone already in his hand like a shield. "You weren't supposed to be here," she said. "I told you I'd come by today," I replied. "I asked you not to be." Evan scoffed. "So you could steal stuff?" I looked at him. Really looked. The confidence drained slightly under the attention. "I'm taking what's mine," I said. "Receipts are in the drawer if you want to check." Karen stepped forward. "This is insane. We got back and nothing works. The car, the school account, Evan can't even—" "I know," I said. She stopped. "You know." "Yes." Evan laughed again, louder this time. "So you did it on purpose?" "I did it deliberately," I said. "There's a difference." "You're ruining everything," Karen said. Her voice cracked, not with sadness, but with inconvenience. "We had plans." "You made plans," I corrected, "without me." "That's not fair." I nodded once. "I agree." Evan stepped closer. "You can't just walk away and leave us with this mess." I taped a box shut, slow and careful. "I didn't make the mess." Karen pressed her lips together, then changed tactics. "Michael, listen. We were wrong to leave the note like that, but you didn't have to go nuclear." I finally looked up. Nuclear would have been cutting the utilities, or canceling the mortgage, or taking the car. I didn't do any of that. "You might as well have," Evan snapped. "I'm locked out of registration." "That's temporary," I said, "and fixable." "With what money?" he shot back. I held his gaze. "That's a question for you and your parents." Tom's voice came from the doorway. "All right, everybody calm down." He'd aged more than I remembered, or maybe inconvenience just sharpened the lines. He smiled at me like we were on the same side. "Mike." "Michael," I said. He nodded. "Michael. Look, we all got a little carried away. Let's reset." I shook my head. "Resetting means going back. I'm not doing that." Karen's voice softened. "We need you." There it was, not "I'm sorry," not "we hurt you," just need. "I know," I said quietly. "That's the problem." Evan exploded then. "You think you're teaching me some lesson? This is petty. This is you being bitter." I set the tape down. "This is me being finished." Silence filled the room, thick and stunned. Karen stared like she'd misheard me. "You don't get to do this," she said finally. "I do," I replied. "I just did." Tom sighed. "Think about what you're throwing away." I looked around the room at the walls I'd painted, the shelves I'd installed, the couch I'd assembled, while Evan complained about the noise. "I already did," I said. "For years." Karen's eyes filled, but her voice stayed sharp. "So what now?" "Now," I said, lifting the box, "I leave." Evan scoffed again, but it lacked force this time. Karen stepped aside slowly, like someone unsure whether resistance still worked. At the door, I turned back. "I didn't do this to hurt you," I said. "I did it to stop hurting myself." No one answered. Outside, the air felt cleaner. I loaded the car and drove away without looking in the mirror. I didn't need to see their faces to know what they looked like. Pale. They didn't give me much time to miss them. 2 hours after I dropped the last box at the storage unit, my phone lit up again. Karen. I let it ring. Then Evan. Then a number I didn't recognize, which I assumed was Tom, calling from a different line, as if changing the number would change the outcome. I drove back to the hotel with the radio off, letting the quiet do its work. The first voicemail came from Karen, her tone practiced and strained. "Michael, please call me. This has gone too far. Evan is panicking. We need to fix this." The second was shorter. "This isn't funny." The third was Evan, breathless and angry. "You can't do this to me. You owe me." That word landed heavier than the rest. I checked in at the desk, nodded to the clerk who recognized me now, and went up to my room. I didn't listen to the rest of the messages. I didn't need to. The pattern was clear: urgency without accountability, need without acknowledgement. I sat on the bed and took a moment before calling back. Not to brace myself, to decide how much of myself I was willing to give to a conversation that had already taken so much. I dialed Karen. She answered immediately. Michael, thank God. Listen, I said gently but firmly. I'm going to say this once. She inhaled, ready to respond. You don't get to call me when it's convenient, I continued. Not anymore. There was a pause. What does that mean? It means you don't get access to my time, my money, or my labor just because something stopped working. That's not fair, she said automatically. I agree, I replied. But fairness left the room when you left that note. She tried a new angle. Evan is just a kid. He's 19, I said, and learning. Her voice tightened. You're enjoying this. I almost laughed. No, I said, I'm enduring it. Evan grabbed the phone, then his voice sharp and shaking. You think you're better than us now? No, I said, I think I'm done pretending. You promised, he said. You said you'd help me through school. I helped, I replied. I didn't adopt you, I didn't marry you, and I didn't agree to fund your adulthood without respect. That's not how family works, he shot back. Then maybe we weren't a family, I said quietly. Karen gasped like I'd struck her. How can you say that? Because families don't disappear and leave instructions, I said. They don't make someone invisible and then act surprised when he stops showing up. Tom's voice cut in again, calmer this time. Michael's son, listen. We're all upset. Let's slow this down. I closed my eyes. I am slow, I said. That's why this is happening. Evan's enrollment is on hold, Tom pressed. He could lose his spot. He won't, I said, if you handle it. Karen snapped. We can't afford it. I waited a beat. Then that's the real conversation. Silence followed. Not the stunned kind, the calculating kind. So that's it, Karen said finally. You're just abandoning us. I considered the word. No, I said, I'm leaving. That's the same thing, Evan muttered. It isn't, I replied. Abandonment is when someone depends on you and you vanish. Leaving is when you stop being depended on without consent. Karen's voice dropped. You're being cruel. I almost smiled. Cruel. That was rich. Cruel was letting me think I belonged, I said. Cruel was calling me when something broke and ignoring me when it didn't. She started crying, then real tears this time. Not for me, for the disruption. Please, she said, just help us get through this semester. I exhaled slowly. No. Tom sighed heavily. You're making a mistake. Maybe, I said, but it's mine. The call ended shortly after that. No slammed phone, no final insult, just the quiet acknowledgement that leverage had changed hands. I set my phone down and stared at it for a long moment, waiting for regret. It didn't come. What came instead was something steadier. Self-respect doesn't announce itself. It just stops asking permission. That night I ordered food and ate slowly, savoring the fact that no one needed anything from me. I thought about the years I'd spent confusing responsibility with obligation, about how easy it is to build a life around being needed, and how hard it is to step out of that role without feeling like a villain. Before bed, I blocked Evan's number. Not out of spite, out of clarity. Karen's I left open for now. Boundaries don't have to be walls, but they do have to exist. I slept deeply that night. No dreams, no rehearsals, just rest. In the morning, I woke to a message from Karen sent just after midnight. I don't understand how you could do this. I read it once and set the phone down. Understanding had never been the issue. I made coffee, packed a small bag, and checked out. The clerk smiled and wished me a good day. I believed her. I wasn't free yet. There were still conversations to be had, still threads to cut carefully. But the hardest part was over. I had said no without apology. I had chosen myself without spectacle. And that, I realized, was something they had never expected. The first Christmas I spent alone wasn't lonely. That surprised me more than anything else. I woke up in a small furnished apartment I'd rented month-to-month, second floor, thin walls but clean. No framed photos yet, no history baked into the corners, just a couch that didn't remember arguments and a table that didn't expect notes. Morning light came through the blinds in narrow stripes, soft and undecided. For a moment I forgot what day it was. Then I smelled coffee from somewhere downstairs and remembered. Christmas. No obligations, no schedule, no pretending. I sat on the edge of the bed and listened. A neighbor's TV murmured faintly through the wall. Someone laughed in the distance, life continuing without asking for my input. I breathed in and out slow and felt something unfamiliar settle in my chest. Peace. I made my own coffee too weak this time and stood by the window. Outside, a few cars passed wrapped in last-minute errands. A kid dragged a bike through the parking lot, helmet dangling from the handlebars. Somewhere, families were opening gifts, arguing over batteries, burning toast. Somewhere else, Karen and Evan were probably staring at a spreadsheet trying to make numbers stretch the way they always had before. I didn't wonder how they were doing. Not because I didn't care, because I finally understood that caring didn't mean caring. I spent the morning unpacking slowly, not everything, just enough to make the place functional. My books went on one shelf, my clothes in the closet. I hung the watch my father gave me on a hook by the door, where I'd see it every time I left. When I sat down, it was because I wanted to sit. When I stood, it was because I chose to move. No one needed anything from me, and for the first time I realized how heavy that need had been. Around noon, my phone buzzed. Karen. I stared at the screen longer than necessary. I could ignore it. That was an option now, but avoidance had never been my problem. Overextension had. So I answered. Michael, she said, quieter than before. Tired. I just wanted to say, Evan figured out a payment plan. Tom helped. That's good, I said, and I meant it. There was a pause. We didn't think you'd actually leave. I know, I replied gently. Another pause. I keep replaying that note, she said. I didn't think you'd take it like that. I took it the way it was written, I said, not the way you wish it sounded now. She exhaled. Are you coming back? No, I said. The word felt clean, not sharp, not cruel, just accurate. I don't know how to do this without you, she said, and for the first time there was no accusation in it. I waited a beat. You'll learn, I said, just like I did. She didn't argue. That might have been the hardest part for her. We said goodbye without promises. When the call ended, I felt a small ache, not loss, but closure. Some doors don't slam. They close softly and stay closed. I spent the afternoon walking the neighborhood, letting the cold redden my hands. I bought myself a small meal from a place that didn't know me. I ate it slowly, watching snow threaten, but never quite commit. In the evening, I called Daniel and thanked him for answering that first quiet call. You sound different, he said. I feel different, I replied. Good different. Et was one? Yes, I said, quieter. That night, I sat on the couch with the lights low and thought about the years I'd spent earning my place by being useful. About how easily usefulness becomes invisibility when it's expected. About how often people confuse needed with loved and how expensive that confusion can be. I didn't regret helping. I regretted not noticing when help turned into obligation, when partnership turned into access without consent. But regret I'd learned is just a teacher that arrives late. Before bed, I wrote myself a note. Not a list, not a reminder, just a sentence. You are allowed to leave places that only value you when you're convenient. I placed it on the table and turned out the light. This story isn't about revenge. I didn't win anything. I didn't ruin anyone's life. I simply stopped running one that wasn't mine anymore. And in doing so, I found something better than validation. I found rest. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt invisible in a place you helped build, I'd love to hear from you. Did I go too far or not far enough? Let me know in the comments below and tell me where you're watching from. We share stories like this every day, quiet reckonings, late realizations, and the courage it takes to choose yourself. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one, and let's keep walking this road together.